Drink it, and if you are sure that you didn't kill my brother, you won't die. But if you did, you will die in front of everyone tonight, said Igbo, my husband's brother, with a wicked smile on his face. No one will save you today, he whispered to himself, as he watched me, Naomi, raise the calabash to my shaking lips. It all started that night. I had just finished cooking jollof rice for my husband. We were about to eat when we heard a knock on the door. We both froze. It was past midnight, so who could be visiting at such a strange hour? My husband looked at me with confusion on his face. I stood up, wiped my hands on my wrapper, and cautiously walked to the door. When I opened it, I was shocked to see who was standing there. It was my husband's younger brother, Igbo. I couldn't believe my eyes. For years, he hadn't spoken to us because of a land dispute between him and my husband. They had argued a lot, fought, and even cursed each other over the land. Igbo had promised he would never come to our house again. So why was he here, smiling? I managed to force a small smile and said, "You're welcome," while opening the door wider. He stepped inside, still wearing that cunning smile. "My brother," he called out, quickly moving to hug my husband. "Let's forget all our fights. You can have the land. After all, it's yours." My husband and I looked at each other in shock. His sudden change of heart seemed too good to be true. But we were happy. Maybe, just maybe, something had changed in him, and we thought God had touched his heart. But little did we know, evil was sitting right there in front of us. My husband invited him to join us for dinner, since the food was already on the table. Igbo laughed and said, "I'm so hungry I could finish the whole pot of rice." He took a spoonful of rice from my husband's plate, complimenting the taste. While my husband and I were distracted by his loud stories and sudden friendliness, Igbo quietly sprinkled something into the rice with his long fingers. We didn't notice anything. My husband took a few more bites, and then suddenly, his face twisted in pain, he clutched his stomach. My stomach, he groaned. Before we could react, he fell to the ground, screaming as if something was tearing him apart from inside. Blood spilled from his mouth, and his body shook violently. "Jesus, what is happening?" I cried out, rushing to his side, but before I could touch him again, he went completely still. Just like that, my husband died in my arms. I gasped, shaking him, screaming his name, begging him to wake up. But before I could understand what had happened, Igbo's voice rose above mine. "You poisoned him," he shouted, pointing at me with fake horror. "I saw you. You put something in his food. You killed my brother." "What? No, I didn't do anything," I screamed. But Igbo didn't give me a chance to explain. He rushed out of the house, shouting for help. Soon villagers came running with lanterns and cutlasses. "She killed him," Igbo screamed again. "I saw her. She has always hated him." The villagers didn't ask questions. They dragged me outside, treating me like an animal. They tied my hands, shaved my head to shame me, and took me to the stream, the place where the village held its judgment. I cried and begged, but no one listened. Igbo kept shouting louder than everyone else, pretending to be heartbroken. In just a few hours, what was once my peaceful home had turned into a nightmare. Days passed, and my husband's death was announced. The elders said I had to face the trial of innocence before he could be buried. According to tradition, they would wash his body, drain the water into a calabash, and I would have to drink it. If I was innocent, nothing would happen. If I was guilty, I would die painfully. I believed with all my heart that I was innocent, so I held on to the smallest, most fragile hope. But what the elders didn't know was that Igbo had secretly paid someone to poison the bathwater. Now the entire village stood at the riverbank watching me. Some were whispering prayers, while others eagerly waited to see me die. The calabash felt heavy in my hands. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode from my chest. Tears streamed down my face. I raised my eyes to the heavens. "God, you know I'm innocent," I whispered. I looked back at the calabash, holding my breath. Everyone was silent, waiting. Igbo's evil smile stood out in the crowd. His eyes were fixed on me, his hunger for my death clear. My hands trembled as I lifted the dark, foul-smelling water to my lips. The villagers watched with bated breath, some with their eyes closed, praying for me, while others eagerly waited to see me fall. But just as I was about to drink the water, a loud scream pierced through the crowd. "Stop her! Stop her!" Everyone turned toward the sound of the scream. It was Ibe's wife, Ngozi. She was running barefoot, her wrapper barely staying on her body, sweat pouring down her face. Before anyone could say anything, she shouted, "Don't let her drink it. I have proof. My husband killed his own brother." A heavy silence fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to Ibe, his face drained of color. I stood frozen, my heart pounding. "What? What are you saying?" Ngozi held up her phone with shaky hands. "I have recordings. I didn't know what he planned that night. But when he came home bragging, I recorded him. I was afraid he would frame Naomi. But today, when I heard he paid someone to poison the water, I couldn't keep quiet." Gasps filled the air. "Play it," the chief ordered. Ngozi pressed play on her phone with trembling fingers. Ibe's voice blasted from the speaker. "The fool didn't even know when I sprinkled the poison. That land must be mine. Once Naomi dies during the trial, everything belongs to me." The crowd murmured angrily. Another recording played. "Make sure you add the poison to the bath water. If she drinks it, let her die like her husband." The villagers screamed. Some women covered their mouths in shock. Some men shoved Ibe forward, demanding answers. Ibe fell to his knees and burst into tears. "Forgive me. I did it because my brother cheated me. He had the land, the house, everything. I had nothing," he cried. The chief shook his head. "You killed your own brother and tried to kill his innocent wife. You deserve death." They turned to me. "You have suffered enough," the eldest elder said. "The decision is yours. Should we banish him from this village forever? Or should he die for his crime?" The crowd waited, their eyes full of expectation. I looked at Ngozi. She was trembling, tears running down her face. She dropped to her knees before me. "Please, he is my husband. I know he is wicked, but he is still the father of my children. Mercy. I beg you." I felt my heart twist. I knew what it meant to lose a husband. I knew the pain. But then I remembered my own husband, the kind man who never hurt anyone, dying in agony because of his own brother. I wiped my tears. "Ibe didn't show mercy when he killed my husband," I said quietly. "He didn't show mercy when he planned to kill me." I looked at the chief firmly. "Let him drink the same poison he gave my husband. Let him face justice." A collective gasp filled the air. Ngozi cried harder. Ibe screamed and begged as men dragged him away. I stood still, breathing slowly, feeling both relief and sorrow. As the men dragged Ibe away, I could hear his cries. He was begging for mercy, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for him. I had witnessed what he did to my husband, and now he was trying to do the same to me. How could I possibly forgive someone like him? The village was silent. The air was thick with tension as everyone waited for the chief to speak. I stood there, my heart still racing, my hands trembling as I wiped away my tears. I didn't want to show weakness in front of these people, but everything inside me felt like it was collapsing. I thought of my husband, how kind and loving he was. He never hurt anyone. He was always looking out for his younger brother, despite the land dispute. He had tried to make peace, but Ibe only wanted to destroy him. And now he was trying to destroy me too. The chief finally spoke. "Naomi," he said, his voice steady and strong, "you have shown strength today. But the law of our land is clear. You must decide how to handle this man, your husband's brother." I didn't know what to say. My mind was in a whirlwind of emotions. Mercy. That was what Ngozi had begged for. Mercy for her husband. I could feel her pain, the same way I felt my own. But how could I show mercy to someone who had taken everything from me? Who had killed the man I loved? I looked at Ngozi again. She was still on her knees, crying uncontrollably. Her face was full of guilt, full of regret. I couldn't imagine the pain she was feeling. She had been married to a monster, a man who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. I had no doubt she loved him, but the question was, did she still love him after what he had done? I took a deep breath, steadying myself as I tried to make the right decision. The crowd was waiting, their eyes fixed on me. I could feel their judgment in the air, as if the entire village was depending on me to make the right choice. I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore. I was fighting for what was right, for justice. "I will not show mercy to a man who killed my husband," I said, my voice trembling but firm. I will not forgive him for what he has done." I could hear a sigh of relief from the villagers. They were all waiting for me to make the decision, and now it was clear what I had chosen. Ibe's fate was sealed, but even as I said those words, I felt something deep inside me. A small part of me wondered if I should have shown mercy for the sake of his wife, for the sake of his children. After all, they didn't choose their father. But then I remembered my husband, and the pain he had suffered. No, I couldn't forgive him. Not after everything. The chief nodded solemnly. "So it shall be," he said. "Ibe will face the consequences of his actions. But Naomi, the decision of his death is now in your hands. Do you want him to face death, or do you want him banished from this village?" I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I thought about what Ibe had done, about how he had poisoned my husband, and how he had tried to poison me. He deserved to pay for his crimes, but did he deserve death? Was it right for me to make that decision? I could feel the weight of the villagers' eyes on me again. They were waiting for me to speak, to make the final decision. I knew what I had to do. I knew it wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about justice. I turned to the chief, my voice steady. "Let him drink the same poison he gave my husband," I said. "Let him face the same fate that he tried to give me." A collective gasp filled the air as the villagers reacted to my words. Some of them nodded in approval, while others were shocked. But none of them spoke up. They knew what I had just done was right. It was justice. I looked at Ibe one last time. He was still begging, still crying, his face twisted with fear. He was no longer the strong man who had walked into my home just days before. Now he was a broken man, defeated by his own greed and hatred. He had brought this upon himself. The men who had dragged him away brought him back to the center of the crowd. His eyes were wide with fear, and he looked at me with desperation. "Please, Naomi," he pleaded. "I didn't mean it. I didn't know what I was doing. Forgive me, please." But I stood my ground. I didn't say anything. I just watched as he was forced to kneel before me. His fate was sealed. There was no turning back now. Ngozi continued to cry at my feet. "Please, Naomi, please don't do this," she begged. "He's my husband. He's the father of my children. I know he's wrong, but please." I looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. I understood her pain. I really did. But I had to do this. I had to make sure that justice was served. My husband had been a kind man, and he didn't deserve to die the way he did. I couldn't let Ibe get away with it. I wiped my tears and took a deep breath. "It's too late for mercy," I said softly. "I'm sorry, Ngozi, but this is the only way." The chief nodded and ordered the men to prepare the poison. They brought a calabash filled with the same dark liquid that had taken my husband's life. Ibe's face went pale as they placed it in front of him. "No, no, please," he screamed, his body trembling. "I can't drink it. I can't." But the villagers were silent. No one spoke. They all watched as Ibe was forced to drink the poison he had planned for me. I stood there, my heart heavy. I knew this was the right thing to do, but it didn't feel good. Watching someone suffer, even someone like Ibe, was not something I wanted. But it had to be done. Justice had to be served. I turned away, my eyes filled with tears. But my heart remained firm. I had done what I believed was right. I had avenged my husband's death. I looked at Ngozi one last time. Her face was full of pain, but also full of understanding. She knew, deep down, that this was the only way. I turned to walk away, my mind still heavy with everything that had happened. My life had been turned upside down, and I wasn't sure what would come next. But one thing was for sure, I had survived. I had made it through the darkness, and I would keep going, no matter what. As I walked back to the village, I could hear the villagers murmuring behind me. Some were still in shock, others were whispering about what had just happened. But none of them stopped me. They knew that I had done what needed to be done. I had lost so much, but in the end I had gained justice, and that, in the end, was all that mattered. As I walked away from the crowd, my heart felt heavy. I could still hear Ibe's desperate screams as he drank the poison. My hands shook, but I kept walking, my head held high. I had made my decision. I had brought justice for my husband. Ngozi's cries echoed in my ears as I made my way back home. I tried not to think of her. She was broken, just like I had been. She loved her husband, and now she would have to live with the consequences of his actions. But I couldn't pity her right now. I couldn't afford to. The village was quiet as I walked through the narrow streets, the faces of the villagers watching me. I could feel their eyes on me, some with sympathy, others with fear. They all knew what had just happened. They knew that justice had been served, but they also knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't want to go back to my home. My husband was gone. The house felt empty, cold. It was the place we had shared so many happy moments, and now it felt like a prison. But where else could I go? What else was there for me? I walked into the house and stood in the doorway for a moment, looking around at the familiar surroundings. The kitchen was still messy with the plates and the leftover jollof rice we had started to eat. The thought of my husband eating his last meal here with his brother made my stomach twist. I sat down on the floor and let my tears fall. I couldn't hold them back anymore. My heart was broken, and no matter what happened next, I knew it would never be the same. I had lost the love of my life, and I had been forced to make a choice I never imagined I would have to make. But I had done it. I had avenged his death. My thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. I quickly wiped my tears and stood up. Who could it be at this hour? I opened the door slowly, wondering if I would have to face more accusations, or if someone from the village had come to pass judgment on me. But when I opened it, I was surprised to see Ngozi standing there, her face swollen from crying. She looked up at me with a mixture of guilt and shame. "Naomi," she said softly, her voice trembling. I just wanted to apologize. I know what my husband did was wrong, and I know I can't take it back. But please know, I never wanted this to happen. I didn't want you to lose your husband. I didn't want any of this." I stared at her for a moment, unsure of what to say. I had no sympathy left for her. I couldn't just forget what had happened, what she had allowed to happen. But I also knew that she was not responsible for her husband's evil. She was just another victim of Ibe's cruelty. I took a deep breath and stepped aside to let her in. "Come in," I said quietly. "I don't know what else to say to you, Ngozi. You were married to him. You had to live with him." She walked in slowly, sitting down across from me. She wiped her eyes again. "I didn't know what he was planning," she whispered. "I thought he was just angry about the land, but when he started talking about poisoning you, I knew I had to do something. I didn't know how to stop him, though. I was afraid of him." I sat down beside her. "It's over now. You don't have to live with him anymore," I said softly. Ngozi nodded, but she still looked like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. "But I have nothing now," she said. "I lost him, and my children. They've lost their father. I know he was wicked, but they still need him. I don't know how to help them." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I knew she was right. Her children were innocent in all of this. They hadn't asked for their father to be a murderer. They didn't deserve to lose him, but at the same time I couldn't find it in my heart to offer her comfort. She had been part of the darkness, part of the evil that had taken my husband from me. I looked at her, my voice barely above a whisper. "You'll have to find a way to move on. I don't know how you'll do it, but you must for the sake of your children. They need you more than ever." Ngozi nodded again, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. "I'll try. I'll do my best." We sat in silence for a while, both lost in our own thoughts. The house felt colder now, emptier. The truth was, no matter what I did, nothing could bring my husband back. No matter how much I tried to make things right, nothing could fill the hole in my heart. After a while, Ngozi stood up, wiping her face. "I should go," she said quietly. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry, Naomi. I know nothing I say can change what happened, but I am sorry." I nodded, unable to find the words to speak. She turned and left, the door clicking softly behind her. I stayed where I was, in the empty house, feeling more alone than ever. It was late now, and the village was quiet. I knew that tomorrow, life would go on. The villagers would return to their normal routines, and the memory of what happened would eventually fade. But for me, there would never be normal again. I had lived through the worst, and now I was left to pick up the pieces of my broken life. I went to the window and looked out at the night sky. The stars were bright, shining above the village. In the darkness, I found a small bit of peace. My husband was gone, but his spirit would always be with me. I would never forget him, and I would never forget the choice I had made. I had fought for justice, and though it had cost me everything, I could walk away knowing I had done what was right. I took one last look at the empty home, my heart heavy with sorrow. It was over now, but the road ahead would not be easy. I knew that I would have to rebuild my life, piece by piece, but somehow I would survive. I had to.